Judge Homer.
Hi, John.
Good afternoon, John. Can you hear us? Oh, connecting to audio again. There it goes.
Are we allowed to eat during this meeting?
As long as your microphone's muted. And I think this phone number calling in is going to be Judge Helmer.
Yep, I'm in. They won't take my password to get in on Zoom, so that's okay. The good news is you don't have to see me.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we're ready to go then.
All right. The chair calls to order September 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission. Welcome, commissioners and staff, and thank you for your attendance today. In your materials, you have today's agenda and the minutes from our August 25th meeting. If everyone has had a chance to review the minutes and the agenda, can anyone identify any corrections?
Recording in progress.
Any corrections? Hearing none.
I would
All
move
in
to
favor?
approve.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Do I have a second on a motion to approve?
I would second that. This is Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Any additional discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes and agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes. The first item on today's agenda is an executive director's report.
Two items on the director report today, both budget related. The first is a fee fund analysis, and the best way to show you the fee fund is with a few charts that I've put together. So a quick overview of the fee fund. When our agency presents a budget, we have two portions of our budget. We have the state general fund, so taxpayer dollars, et cetera. And then we have the Governmental Ethics Commission fee fund, which is primarily comprised of lobbyist registration fees, candidate fees, and PAC and party registrations. So those fees go into the fee fund. That fee fund funds a portion of what we do, typically about 1/3. So the first chart you actually have, we always are concerned with the ending balance and making sure that the long run projections for the fee fund remain solvent. This has been, like you all know, a #1 priority for me upon coming into this position. So the first chart you have is the fee fund ending balance comparison with the percent of the budget that is funded by the state general fund. So the blue bars are the ending balance of the fee fund, and then the orange line is the percent of that budget that's funded by SGF. Those of you who remember the earlier discussions a few years ago, there's been over the time period of about fiscal year 10 through fiscal year 17, the state general fund component of our budget had been reduced over time. And you can see that in that graph, that the percent of our budget that was funded by SGF dropped quite a bit. And you'll see that the pressure on the fee fund resulted in an ending balance that had a corresponding decrease as well. Now, thanks to some work by the legislature, we've helped to correct that imbalance and start returning the budget and the percent of the budget that has been comprised of SGF back to a healthier percent, a healthier mix of SGF and fee fund. Those last two columns that are in the light blue, fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, those are the budgeted amounts. So if we spent every single dollar that we budgeted, that would be the ending balance in the fee fund. I put these as different because it's important to recognize this is the absolute worst case scenario. This is if we spent every single dollar that we could possibly have spent that we budgeted. And so typically, historically what happens is you see a bit of a decrease in those budget years, but as long as we have a historical consistent solvent trend, which we do today, then that isn't too big of a problem. So the second chart is the fee fund ending balances compared to the 4-year trend line. And by a 4-year trend line, I mean the 4-year average of the ending balances. And I think this is where it makes it a little clearer as well, that the ending balance over time, ever since about fiscal year 18, when we made some adjustments, started to correct that historical imbalance in the fee fund. You'll see that time pressure decrease in the ending balance going all the way to fiscal year 17. And then we stabilized that ending balance. And it's my goal to maintain that stability in the long run as well. The last chart is the fee fund ending balance compared to expenditures. You'll see that the expenditures from the fee fund increased across that fiscal year 10, fiscal year 17 time period when our state general fund component of the budget was being reduced. Generally speaking, in that time frame, we had a fairly flat budget. We didn't have a lot of increases. And you'll see that the expenditures from the fee fund do continue to have a little bit of fluctuation, but mostly stay about stable, right at about $250,000. And that's including in fiscal year 22 and 23, including our full budget request. I can take any questions about the fee fund, or I can move on to the couple of technical corrections in the budget submission.
Any questions? I'd say go ahead with the second part.
The next item on the director's report is technical corrections. You might recall that when we approved the budget, we approved allowing for some slight technical adjustments. There were a couple of little things. Fiscal year 22 had a slight change in fringe benefits, as well as a little bit of a difference in commission mileage that we're planning for fiscal year 22 in terms of planning for meetings. But the overall adjustment is $0. There's not an increase in the fiscal year 22 request. It's still no change from the approved amount because we found the same amount of savings in our IT budgeting. So exactly $391 we added from fringe benefits and commission mileage and reduced the same from IT. In fiscal year 23, it was a little bit of an increase. Again, fringe benefits, once they finally were recalculated, it was a $408 increase. The same kind of recalculation of commission mileage from fiscal year 22 resulted in a $795 increase in mileage. And part of this is that while we hope obviously everyone is reappointed because we like working with all of you, we don't know if someone could be appointed from farther away, or perhaps we have a subcommittee meeting or any number of other items, an extended hearing. There's a number of issues that can result in mileage increasing. And I was not entirely comfortable with the mileage rate at $42.18. So it increased to $5,013 after a little bit of a recalculation. Additionally, the original IT approved amount for fiscal year 23 was $10,643. I had reduced that to $8,643. However, we, in talking to our database contractor a little bit, we don't know yet what the hosting fee is going to be for the database in fiscal year 23. I anticipate that it won't be a huge expense, but nonetheless, maintaining a little bit of flexibility in our IT budgeting is necessary to ensure that we are prepared for that contracted rate. And so I left that at the original approved $10,643, which is $2,000 above what we had previously talked about at our last meeting. So I can take any questions on the technical corrections or the fee fund. And otherwise, that's all I have for the director's report today.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions of Mark? Okay, let's proceed with the next item of the agenda. We have 4 civil penalties to note.
The civil penalties are pretty straightforward today. We have Melanie Haas and Nathan Haas, a candidate for State Board of Education, and also treasurer for Melvin Williams. I'm sorry, Melanie Haas is a candidate for State Board of Education. Her treasurer is Nathan Haas. Her amended October 26th report was filed 5 days late for an amount of $50. The treasurer was assessed the same amount. And the amended January 10th, 2021 report was 1 day late for both of them as well. So another $10 or $60 total for each. And Taisha Nichols had a late July 2021 receipts and expenditures report. The treasurer was assessed $220 for that. We also have a lobbyist civil penalty for Abby Goins, who was 1 day late, filed this on September 17th. 1 day late is $100 for lobbyists. Those are automatically assessed. No motion is necessary.
Thank you, Mark. The next item on the agenda are civil penalty waiver requests, and for that, we also have 4 items to discuss.
The first is Melvin Williams. Melvin Williams was assessed $1,000 as a local candidate for office. His treasurer was Tyasha Nichols, who we just assessed $220 for late filing of the campaign finance report. You see Mr. Williams' waiver request there. I don't believe that Mr. Williams' waiver request identifies a reason to waive for Mr. Williams. However, he does take responsibility over and above his treasurer, and indicating essentially that I have no issue waiving the treasurer's amount, but I don't see a reason to waive the. I don't recommend a waiver for Mr. Williams himself unless the commission believes that $1,000 is substantially more than necessary to deter this particular violation, which may be the case.
Do any commissioners wish to make a motion? If not, we will proceed.
I would move that we waive the treasurer's amount.
I'll second that. Ken.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ken. The motion is to waive as it relates to Tyasha Nichols. Is there any additional discussion?
When we send out a letter indicating the action or no action that we've taken, this is a question to staff. Do we point out to them that the fine can be paid with campaign funds?
I don't recall if that actually says that in the letter, but typically they are aware that that is something that they can do.
Okay, I would recommend that we point that out to them.
Okay, thank you, John. Well, we'll go ahead and take a vote on the motion. All in favor of approving the motion to waive with respect to Tyasha Nichols and take no action with respect to Melvin Williams, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes.
The next item is a waiver request for Nick Noland. I believe he was assessed $200 back in quite a while ago in November 2020. Honestly, I don't have a recommendation for this. This is a little bit of an odd one for 2 reasons. Number one, the waiver request indicates that he would like to pay whatever he owes. And second, he indicates that he was stationed in Okinawa. I believe he was going to be back in time for the election, is my understanding, but I don't really have a lot of context for this candidacy, where he was and when he was located at particular places. So it's a little bit of an odd one, and so I don't have a recommendation on this item.
I appreciate the fact that he accepts responsibility and is willing to pay, but the way I read it, it appears that he was overseas serving the country. And for that reason and other reasons, I would move to waive.
I'll second.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Jerry. The motion is to waive with respect to Nick Noland. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
I do have a question. I mean,
Sure.
and I appreciate the comment, but his treasurer wasn't serving and could have taken care of this.
I don't know if he was his own treasurer. Let me see if I have I don't have an indication that we assessed his treasurer at the same time, which generally would indicate that he was his own treasurer, but I don't know that for sure without pulling up some documents.
Do you have a way of seeing that at this moment, Mark?
Well, he says he started out as his own campaign treasurer, and then I assume that he got a campaign treasurer from that.
I don't know. And we can, if you want, we can hold this until the next meeting if you'd rather. We can determine the treasurer. We'd be calling essentially we identify the appointment of treasurer.
I'd call for the question.
What's that, John?
I'd call for the question. Call for a vote on the motion.
Okay, got it. Well, we'll proceed with the vote. As it is, the motion is to waive entirely. All in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes.
And Commissioner Detterding, if there is a treasurer on file, I'll be sure to place a specific call to them and let them know the seriousness of the issue, so that they don't make the same mistake in future if there is a treasurer on file.
Okay.
Okay,
The
thank you.
last
The
waiver
next item-
request, I apologize.
Go ahead.
The last item is Claudine Sanders, a candidate for local office. You see the extensive waiver request there. She was assessed $1,000. This is a medical issue, and she even submitted substantiating records, which people typically do not do when they're requesting a waiver. I, of course, would recommend consistent with past practice regarding medical waivers.
I would so move.
Second, Ken.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Ken. The motion is to waive. Any additional discussion?
I think maybe we need to take up a collection for her. I've never seen one, quite as deserving as this.
Yeah. Well, let's take a vote on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a paid-for attribution review involving a Mr. Aaron Coleman.
Representative Aaron Coleman missed the correct paid for attribution on his Facebook page. He submitted this email that you have in front of you requesting a waiver past practice. This is his first offense. Past practice is to waive first time offenses for paid for violations, though we do send them a rather sternly worded letter indicating that any future violations can result in fines of up to $5,000 for a first offense, and that it is a commission of a misdemeanor offense. We would waive these as a matter of course. I do think this is a particularly well worded waiver request compared to some of those that do get submitted. My recommendation is consistent with past practice to waive the paid for violation.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a motion?
I would make that motion.
Thank you, Kyle. Do I have a second?
Ken will second.
Thank you, Ken. Any additional discussion? All in favor of approving the motion to waive signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the executive session. Executive Director Skoglund, approximately how much time do you believe we'll need?
5 minutes. I don't think it will take very much time.
Okay, I have 1:22 right now. Why don't we say 1:28 to be safe? Kyle?
Yes, I would make that motion. For good cause pursuant to KAR 19-6-2, I move to recess this open meeting until 1:28 for executive session with staff present to discuss matters related to complaints, audits, or investigations made confidential pursuant to KSA 29-4161 and 25-4165. Justification for executive meeting is to consult with the commission's attorney, which is within the attorney-client privilege as provided for in KSA 75-4319, subparagraphs B2.
Thank you, Kyle. Do I have a second of the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion to enter into executive session signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say nay. The motion passes.